Gali, buenos dias. I'm honored and blessed to be here with the Capuli to serve as a guest speaker today on the MILPA show. It's an honor to be here. I don't think of too many places I'd rather be than to be here with y'all having a philosophical conversation. Just having a conversation in itself. I think the exchange of your neurons that occurs when we have a conversation is a beautiful thing. So for us to be able to exchange that today, I'm looking forward to it. Oh.
Cultural consciousness and movement building MILPA. Cultivated change makers.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the MILPA show. It's 2022, so there's some new energy in the air. So today we have a very special guest. James Martinez is a modern-day philosopher and dear colleague hailing from Salinas, California. And he is the Policy and Programs Assistant at MILPA and is currently working on his bachelor's degree in philosophy with a concentration on ethics, politics, and law at Sacramento State University. So you're going to hear more about that. He is a son, father, and partner to his amazing family and has overcome many harsh barriers to be with us here today. So this man is an incredibly strong leader in our MILPA crew and an astounding public speaker, and you'd know that if you knew him right off the bat. And so his past in his rearview mirror, he heads to law school. Catch him in a city near you, rolling up in his lowrider to his law office. Con estilo.
That's right.
Thanks for being here with us today, James. How are you doing? Tell us your thorns, which is your baggages. Tell us your rose petals, which are your gifts.
I'm doing great. Muchísimas gracias for allowing me the opportunity to be here present with y'all and to share space, which is, for me, means a lot to me to be able to come here. Traveling quite a little distance, but for me, the intention of coming here and sharing space and having a conversation for me was something I was very much looking forward to. But I'm doing great. Thorns, just back a little sore. Started doing my little workout routine again, and with that workout comes the weakness leaving the body, hence the soreness. But for me, it's been something that's also been a gift to help me realize that I'm alive. I'm growing, I'm expanding, and part of that is feeling some of that pain, some of that weakness leaving the body. So it reminds me that I'm human. It keeps me present in the moment, and it helps me build that consciousness of my body and what I'm feeling in the present moment. So those are some of my thorns. And my rose petals is family, community. El calor de familia is something that I have that means a lot to me. And when I mean calor de familia, those sitting around me in the capuli encompasses that as well. So for me, those are some of my rose petals that I always look to every day. And the beauty of life gives me purpose and meaning, and my family and my community and the goals that I have keep me, grounded and keep me pursuing. And I'm grateful for that. So those are my rose petals.
Beautiful. Yes. Thank you so much for sharing. And I feel it with the working out, right? It's un sacrificio, but at the end of the day, it's us helping our body for the long term, right? And so I feel that one. And yes, for myself, thank you for sharing. So for myself, I would say my thorns, I think the only thing is I'm going on the third day of not sleeping well. But I think a lot of that has to do with I'm so excited about 2022. There's so much on my mind of I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Just really kind of mapping out my life as much as I can day by, not getting too crazy of 5 years from now, but day by day. All right, I want to spend more time with my family. I want to make sure that my nutrition and fitness is on point. I want to ensure that I'm spending time with loved ones, right? And that includes this. I was really looking forward to coming here and being able to have this. And so it's a baggage, but it leads into the rose petals of there's so many gifts, right? There's so much going on, of so much to be grateful for, that I'm just happy to be alive and breathing and here and feeling great, honestly, and being here with y'all. So yeah, with that, I'll pass it to you, Bernie.
Man, well, first off, what's up, gente? It's good to be back. Hope everyone had a great holiday break, right? Those holidays, that Christmas, that New Year, that everybody was able to spend it, in a good space, with family, with loved ones, sharing all that intimacy, right? All that good stuff, and much love and respect to all the mothers out there, the fathers out there, the little youngsters, grandmas, grandpas, everybody like that, So coming into this new year, hey, for myself, I ain't gonna lie, I had a lot of good food, a lot of sweets, all that stuff. So I'm feeling it right. I'm feeling it I need to get back into my my exercise regimen, right? But yeah, I think, and that's just always been one of my things too, because it's in my head, I'm just well, there's gonna be tamales, pozole, you know, all these things. So I'm gonna go hard, you know, and then I'll just get my New Year's resolution and be like, yeah, I'm gonna work out, you know. So, but just you know, just feeling that little bit of excess, right? Those are my thorns, you know, but my gift, right? My rose petals. You know, I was able to really take some time off and reflect and relax, right? You know, and with the knowing that my parents are safe, you know, from COVID and all that stuff, you know, was able to spend some time with my little sister, right? Shout out to her, you know, she's doing really good right now, and you know, she's thriving, you know, and that's something that I've prayed for a long time, you know. So Leah, you know, much love and respect to you. You know, keep doing that job, that great work that you're doing. You know, it's you know you know the universe is there for you. You know, it's inspired for you. So I just want to say that. You know, but I'm just happy to be back at it, back at the work. You know, there's a lot of work to be done, and a lot of relationships to build. Right, a lot of conversations to have. You know, and I'm excited to have this conversation with the bro James. You know. Is a very dear friend and colleague, you know. So con esto, you know, we're just gonna jump into it, you know, and you know, just to get it started, you know, like, you know, James Martinez, you know, maybe you could break us down who James Martinez is, you know.
Who James Martinez is, I believe, is a very profound question. In order to really understand who I am, I think we gotta look into, you know, the many different chapters of James's life. But for the most part, I would say James is a student of life. You know, one of the greatest philosophers, you know, stated that an unexamined life is not worth living. You know, so every day I try to examine my life to see what it is that I'm becoming and to see that transformation that's taking place in my life. But when I think about who I am, I'm a father, you know, I'm a son, I'm a student, I'm an activist, I'm pain, you know, I'm love, I'm heartache. You know, I think I really encompass everything of that sort, right? And to go full circle and really think about, you know, who I once was and what I've been able to become in that transformation, like the metamorphosis of a butterfly, how it goes in through its stages of its development. And that's something we all do, you know. And my stages of development looked, I would say, very different in comparison to many. Growing up in a marginalized community, growing up in a community that strongly enforces the school to prison pipeline and this constant influx of incarcerating brown bodies. And I was one of those. I was one of those, you know, incarcerated brown bodies from a young age. And to see how that influenced my trajectory and my course of direction in life, and being told in my adolescence and my K through 12 experience that I was going to be a farm worker like my aunts and my uncles, and having to break through that psychological torment in a sense of crippling my hopes and my dreams ever since I was younger, and having to come full circle and realize my potential in the abilities that I have and trusting in that. Right, so when I think about who James is a dreamer. James is someone who hopes and aspires to accomplish not only his goals but the goals of his community, and to hold that at heart. At the end of the day, we all need a purpose, we all need a reason. So for me, you know, when I think about who James is, I think of the purpose of my community, I think of the purpose of my family. And for me, like I said, that's a profound question. I think that changes every day, right? Who we are, and a lot of that has to do with our experiences and the things that we endure in our life. But to really hit the nail right on the head, I would have to say James is a student of life, and I'm learning, and I always want to learn. So if anyone can teach me something, please, let's have that conversation and teach me something. I'm a student.
Hey, philosopher indeed, right? Hell yeah, you know, yeah, gracias for that. And I was, you know, I admire that. I admire that about you, you know, that, because it is a profound question, you know, that's like the universal question, right? It's like what everybody wants to know, like, well, who am I? What am I about? What is my purpose, right? All those things, you know, and I think it says that it speaks volumes, like, to be able to have a direction in a sense of like who you are, you know? So, you know, it's, respect, you know, for that. You know, I know you're out there at you know, in Davis, right? But you were born here, right? You were born here, grew up here, you know. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about your upbringing. You know?
Absolutely. I was born in San Jose, California, and I was raised here in Salinas, California. And thinking about my upbringing, coming up in a single family home, and having a stepfather, and thinking of some of those dynamics that I missed growing up, right? And seeing some of those needs that weren't fulfilled as an adolescent, and seeing how that affected my upbringing. And I think, when we think about my upbringing, I think we got to encompass everything, right? Because there's variables when it comes to understanding someone's upbringing. And I mentioned about being in a single family household because I saw my mom having to struggle. I saw my mom having to do the best that she could to provide a roof, shelter, and food, and understanding that I also had needs that didn't so much require the substance of material or providing, but more the needs of acceptance, the needs of knowing that I have a purpose and I have a direction in life and I have a community that supports me. For example, like the Cub Scouts growing up, I don't remember no such thing in my community as the Cub Scouts or any type of recreational activities that brought us in and provided us that sense of direction. And having a mom and not having a father, there was critical needs that weren't met. And part of those needs that weren't met, me being a child at that time, I found the need and the ability to seek something that I was looking for. And the closest thing that resembled that was my community. So when I think about my upbringing, I think about where I grew up. I grew up in Salinas, and understanding what Salinas encompasses, it's a very violent place. It is a very a place that there's a lot of needs and a lack of resources that are not met. And part of those lack of needs and resources that are not met, it leads to other derivatives, right? It leads to other causes and other actions. And part of that was when I was 14 years old, I was gunned down and left for dead at the age of 14. And when I had mentioned about the community that I was brought up in, it being violent, that was part of my upbringing. At the age of 14, I remember being gunned down and left for dead. And fortunately, the creator and the life source had its purpose, and and I persevered and I overcame, that tragic experience that happened to me as an adolescent. And I mention that because, you mentioned my upbringing, and that's one of the first things that I think about when I think about my upbringing, was how I experienced a traumatic experience at the age of 14 and not being able to make sense of it and understand what had happened to me and how my life was nearly taken, and how that, forced me in a trajectory that was leading me down a direction that I was becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? I was becoming the very thing that happened to me, right? And experiencing that hurt, experiencing that pain, experiencing that sense of not knowing if you're gonna live or die, really altered, my perception and my perspective of life, which took me down a trajectory where I ended up incarcerated from the age of 18 to 21, which is also part of my upbringing, right? Because we think about everything that ever happens to us in our life, and it sculpts us like a potter sculpting his clay. Life is like that potter, and it sculpts us, and it builds us, and it breaks us. So when I think about my upbringing, I think about those stages of my life where I was battered but not broken, where I was to the point where I wanted a different course of direction. And I think that's what leads us to this conversation that we're having today, is I didn't allow my upbringing to define me. I allowed my upbringing to build me and to polish me and to give me a sense of direction. And rather than blaming others for what had happened to me, I looked inward and how can I change the direction of my future? We don't choose where we're born. We don't choose the communities we are born into, but we do choose the direction of our lives and what choices we make from here moving forward. And I lean back on that, right? Because reflecting on my upbringing, on my past, it allows me to come up with that understanding on why life gave me the cards life gave me, But rather than sitting here worrying about what life gave me, I reflect and I worry about what can I do with what life gave me. You know, the struggles that I endured, the testimony that I possess, my ability to, you know, step outside of that carcel revolving door that was constructed to keep us in this carcel state, and to have the ability to dream even though an attempt was made to take that away from me. Hence, I had mentioned being told that I was going to be nothing more than a farm worker. I felt like that ability to hope for anything more was taken from me, and I had to repossess something that was taken. And that was part of my upbringing's transformation of having to reflect on my past and my presence and how I became the man that I am today, which is forever evolving, right? We forever change. We don't stay the same thing, right? What we do is we live, we learn, we experience, we endure. And for me, I look at my upbringing as an example of poverty, as an example of state-sanctioned violence. As indigenous people, that violence is very common in our communities, and I think it starts back to the origin of it, which is colonialism, how they came and how we were received, and how it's gotten to the point where we've experienced so much violence, so much hate, that in a sense we've eternalized it. We've encompassed it, right? And now we traject it on those who look like us, right? And having to realize that, and then realize some of the hurt and the pain that I caused in my upbringing has also helped me transform, right? Because part of that self-reflection that we reflect every day on who we are and who we're becoming helps us to become a better human being and give back and restore some of the things that we might have not had. For example, as I mentioned, not growing up with a father, now I'm able to experience, you know, some of those experiences with my boys that I never had. So I'm able to rekindle something that I didn't have. So rather than looking at it as a negative, I like to look at it as a positive. But my upbringing has had a monumental effect on my growth and who I am as a person today, and I honor it. And when I say I honor it, is I'm thankful for every person who ever came into my life and taught me something. I'm grateful for every experience I ever had, though it might not have been the best experience, but I was able to gain some valuable teachings and lessons from them, right? And rather than put myself down, I like to lift myself up, and rather to put down others, I like to lift up others as well. So that's part of my upbringing. And it's a profound question. I feel like we can go on with that one, but I appreciate that question because it helps me, you know, reflect and kind of ponder about some of those reflections that sometimes I don't necessarily have all the time, right? So I really appreciate that question. Thank you.
You have an amazing ability to take something that might be really complex and just simplify it. And something that has stuck with me that you said to me was, the people in my life, if you're not pushing me forward, giving me love, I don't need you in my life, right? And so that's something that's really like once we're able to gain that perspective of like people, and when we meet people and get their vibe, we're able to see the way they talk to us, the way they behave, right? We're able to pick up on these little signals of, okay, you're pushing me back. Like everything I do, you're just questioning, you just, it doesn't feel like you're supportive. Whereas like there's people in our lives that are like, let's go, like they're your cheerleaders, right? So absolutely. I feel like where did that come from? Like, has that always been with you, or is it through studying philosophy, or like what is that ability for you to take something that might be really complex and just like, you know what, I like to simplify things, I'm a simple man, this is how I see the world, this is my philosophy?
I think it's a little bit of both, Rosaura. I think it's life experiences, and I think it's a little bit of philosophical lens that I've, studied. But for me, it's either you're building people up or either you're tearing them down. Either you want the best for, people, or you don't. For me, simplifying it makes things a lot more simple in my mind, right? Rather than complicated, let's simplify it, right? And in doing so, I think it also came from the fact that not everyone believed in me. Not everyone loved me. Not everyone, as you had mentioned, cheered me on. Not everyone rooted me on. But that didn't mean that I wasn't going to root for myself, and it didn't mean that I was going to stop rooting for others. I think if you want success for yourself, you got to want success for others. That's the way it works. And I think you can't just want good for you and not want good for others. part of wanting what's best for you is to want what's best for others. And for me, when you had mentioned that quote, it rings a bell, Rosaura, because in many different times, there are people that are in our lives that are going to be there to tear us down. And we got to understand and show compassion and understand that there might have been an encounter in their life where someone tried to tear them down, someone tried to put their dreams down. And I remember telling people that I was going to go to law school, and I don't want to mention no names, but I remember telling a few folks,
you know who you are.
I appreciate you for that one, telling me that, you know what, James, with your background, I don't think it's possible for you to ever get into a university. I don't think it's impossible for you to ever get accepted into law school. And I told them, thank you for your insight, but whatever happened to you, in your life where you stopped dreaming, doesn't mean that I'm going to stop dreaming. Doesn't mean that I'm going to stop aspiring. I have a goal, and I'm going to reach that goal. Is it going to be easy? Absolutely not. If it was, everyone would do it. But don't set your limitations on me, because I'm not who you are, and you are not who I am. We all have a calling in our heart. We all have a purpose, and it's up to each and every one of us to find that purpose. And when I said that, to me, that's what I meant, Rosaura, is focus on your dream in your heart, right? And don't focus on what other people say. Don't focus on what other people think, because when we get caught up in that, we forget what we think, and we forget what it is that we want to achieve. So I would say it's important for us to always remember that not everyone's going to support you. Not everyone's going to love you. But those who love you and those who support you, they're recognizable. You can recognize them. They're in your corner through thick and thin, and they show up in such a way where they want to be part of the solution rather than the problem. So I always like to present that question. What is your objective? Do you want to be part of the problem, or do you want to be part of the solution? And I think for me, we all got to ask ourselves that question, right? For me, I want to be part of the solution. That's why I chose law school as a destination, because I recognize the need that's needed in our communities. We are heavily incarcerated. We are heavily policed, and part of that is learning those policies and learning those laws that affect our communities, and going to our communities and supporting them in that civic engagement and getting them involved in this process is very monumental in our community moving forward. So that's why I chose to take this course of direction, to be part of the solution. And even though at one time people told me I was part of the problem.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for that. Yeah. So in listening to all the aspirations that you have of, you're in school right now, getting your BA in philosophy and your concentrations, and then you wanting to go to law school, in all of that, how did you get in touch with MILPA? How did that happen?
Man, I would say the blessings of the Creator. I would say the Creator has his intentions, and everything lined up into place, and I was given the opportunity to be a part of the NGF, the Next Generation Fellowship, and to be a part of that space and to be a part of the community really helped me to establish a sense of direction, establish a sense of recognizing my potential and my ability to offer my experience, but not only my experience, our expertise that we've learned through our hands-on experience in the community, and to be able to lend that expertise and to present it and for it to be acknowledged, for me was a beautiful feeling in itself. But more than a feeling, to see that there was a point in our lives where we were on the menu, and now we're at the table, having some of these discussions, and how can we improve the conditions of our communities and improve the conditions that affected us when we weren't able to improve them, but improve them for those that will come.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, listening to you guys mention, that internalized racism that our community suffer from, right? From like European contact, all those barriers that were created for the people here on this land, right? For our families, right? Our generations past, and so it's very uplifting to hear, like that through your that you were in through that time that you were enduring your traumas, right? All those impacts that were going on in your life, you know, it's that you had that mindset, you know, and a lot of us, you know, it's hard for us to get into that mindset, you know, of hope. You know, we just fall into despair, you know, depression, you know, and we can't seem to get out of it, you know. So, but just listening, you know, it seems like you know, you've been very aware of the circumstances and conditions, right? Understanding those concepts, right, that the system has deployed upon our communities. Watsonville, Salinas, Greenfield, you know, this region, you know. So, you know, going to school, right? Like, was that something that just you were influenced by NGF or influenced by just your need to do something different, or how did when was that moment where you're like, you know, I need to go back to school?
I would say the moment that I felt the need to go back to school was the moment I decided to pursue law as a career. And for me, I would say I owe that to the law library in CDCR, where I found my passion for law, where I found that I can really serve as an asset to my community by learning these laws and learning a formula that can help free our people. And when I think about free our people, liberate our people, seeing many people that were in the carceral state that didn't belong there for tedious infractions, it infuriated me. And to understand how we're treated as numbers and mere cattle as a means to gain capital, and understanding this prison industrial complex, it really opened up my eyes, and I understood at that moment that if I'm gonna be part of the solution, I need to go back to school and get my credentials. And part of reading law, many people would tell me, like, how do you understand that? I'm like, man, I don't know, it just makes sense. And they were like, you have a gift. And they started, you know, little by little installing that hope, installing that ability to dream that I think was taken from that. I don't think that I believe that was taken from me as an adolescent, when I was told that you're a menace to society, you're no good, go to the office. And I believe what it was is they didn't understand my way of learning. They didn't understand me as a person. They didn't consider the fact that I was a human in search of an ability to learn. And though I had learning differences, rather than embracing those learning differences, they just ostracized me by labeling me disruptive, labeling me, you just come to school to cause trouble. And as a child, I started to believe that, right? And when the teacher would tell me, like, oh, if school doesn't make sense, don't worry, this wasn't meant for you. You know, you're meant to be a farm worker. You're meant to have your hands in the dirt. So that crippling of the mind, but not only the mind, of the spirit, that I cannot become anything more. And having to face that, right? So I think that's something that also propelled me to go back to school, that challenged me that I can do it, even though once upon in my life there was people that told me that I couldn't. So I think it was a Pyrrhic victory in itself, right? That I needed to go and I needed to overcome something that in a sense was taken from me. You know, being told I wasn't going to graduate high school, being told that I wasn't going to make it to the age of 18, being told that I would never attain a university degree, being told I would never go to law school and never practice law. I think this was the fire and the fuel that really was installed in me that propelled me to go back to school.
When you were reading at the law library at CDCR, was that for how did that start? Was that for the purposes of I need to resolve my own case, and then did it move into I want to be able to help give people tips, or how did that start off?
I would say it started off by the desire to read. It was an opportunity to have reading literature and to take the time to sit there and feed my mind was something that really propelled me to want to read law, because I understood in many different instances how I was railroaded, even with my case. Once I started to study, I had found that the only way my case was a felony was the enhancement. But the moment you remove the enhancement, I was in prison for a misdemeanor. So to take that into consideration, it really upset me, but upset me in a good way, right? Rather than getting mad at the problem, I said, okay, what is the solution? How can I help improve, the circumstances of my community? And I found that the way of improving is to learn law and to come to our communities and teach our communities. Because a lot of times we criminalize ourselves. A lot of times we take plea bargains when in all reality we should go to trial. So there's many things that we're not taught, and there's a reason we're not taught, these, how would I say it? These constitutional rights that we have as human beings, right?
Even at the point of contact of like everybody understanding Miranda rights and their constitutional rights, like you said, of, you don't have like the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment specifically, right? Of you don't have to talk to anybody, you could plead the Fifth, right? And a lot of people don't know that these are their rights. So I find that fascinating.
No, absolutely. And to see how even times how you're bamboozled into cooperating on when they say, oh, talk to me and, I'll make things lighter on you. In all reality, they're looking for you to build your case against you. And then in the end, they end up railroading you in the end. And it's been seen even in case law. Like, I'm not making this up. I challenge everyone, go study case law. You will be surprised what you read in case law. Some of the things that go on. And I think one thing that also pushed me for law was experiencing all the injustices in my communities, the over-policing, the constant harassment, the constant police brutality. It really built what I would refer to as a justice bone in my body that really pushes me to want to serve justice in my community, knowing that my community is filled with injustice, right? And rather than sitting here and getting mad at the problem, what am I doing for the solution? And you had mentioned, Rosaura, about simplifying things. I think that's just how my mind works, right? What is the solution to the problems that we face in our communities? And I came up with this understanding that law school is my path, and it makes sense to me, and God has given me that gift to understand law. So I'm gonna pursue it with all my being, and I thank God for putting MILPA, in my life, because I'm doing a lot of the work, but I'm doing hands-on work here, right? So once I get my law degree and start working on policy, I'm gonna have that hands-on experience, right? So this has been monumental in my development and my growth. If you take away MILPA, you take away NGF, I would have never gained the valuable hands-on experience that I've gained. So absolutely, Bernie, NGF has had an enormous effect on my life, and also on the decisions that I made after the fact, right? The getting into the policy work and working with youth leaders. For me, that's also given me a sense of direction, and to be able to give something to my community that I didn't have as an adolescent, right? And giving back in a way that it helps them and the next 7 generations to come.
Yeah, no, off top, let's it's thinking about the case law, going to the law library, right? And it's something that I did as well, right? But to me, it was like, man, I was trying to read this stuff. I needed a dictionary, and let's start, all this stuff. So I think it's imperative and crucial to have wise minds, like yours, that can read something so complicated, right? By design, and simplify it, so that you can able to relate and have those conversations and let folks that don't understand it comprehend. It's so
it's almost like you're the Harriet Tubman of our people. Dude, you're doing this hard ass fucking thing that a lot of people can't compute it. But
yeah. To your point. So I'm looking forward to that great, to that work that you're gonna be doing, and it's and just thinking about how you've been, been here at MILPA, we've been building all that stuff and seeing your growth, right? Seeing your just your carnalismo, right? Your even your growth as a father también, your relationship with your son and your family, right? It's honorable, you know what I mean? And I like to see it, because I understand too that there's a lot of our families are not there yet, a lot of our communities not there, but you did mention, working with youth leaders, and we know that you're doing some work out there, so maybe break it down for the folks that are watching, that want to, that want to learn, what is James doing out there with the youth, so.
In Solano County, we've been privy with the opportunity to work with Golden Hills youth leaders for the last 5 years, and to see them graduate at the rate that they're graduating, and to see them transform in the midst of everyone involved, from the administration to the teachers, from the teachers to the community, to come in and see the change that can be installed in these youth leaders' lives when they have a support system, when they have mentors in place that are there to help them mentor this rites of passage. And what we do is we facilitate Joven Noble in Solano County, and some of the youth leaders are ready to start facilitating themselves and to see how they've been able to learn the concepts, to see how they've been able to learn, the importance of being honorable with their palabra and being honorable with their word, and creating a community that fosters love, that fosters acceptance, and fosters a sense of vulnerability, has really created a classroom that has really been able to establish love. And I say love because I feel like love is a revolutionary term, especially living in a society that has taught us to hate ourselves, right? What it is to come in and love each other and accept each other and embrace each other, and rather than being like those crabs in the barrel and pulling each other down, we're figuring out a way to lift each other up. So, for me to create a synopsis of what we're doing, I think in Solano County, we're creating youth leaders for the next 7 generations that are going to be at the helm of this work and going to take over the work that we're doing in Solano County eventually. And to see where they're going is beautiful. And I feel like words can't do it justice, right? In a sense, words do it a disservice. I would encourage you all, to take the opportunity to see the work that we're doing, even in Solano County, but also the work we're doing here at the Capuli. This is transformational work. This is work that is something that's needed in every community in California, if you ask me personally. And I get it, we all have opinions, but that is my opinion. Golden Hills is a model site. It's been able to offer youth leaders an opportunity, and so many times they often find ways to funnel them into the justice system, but they don't find many ways to funnel them into the educational system. And that's what we're doing at Golden Hills.
Yeah, no, shout out to the administration there, the teachers at Golden Hills. I had the privilege, right, to go and see the work that the bros are doing there, and man, it was, it's like you go in and you have a classroom full of youngsters, right, youth leaders and stuff, and I remember me myself being in the schools like that, smaller classrooms, right, but not having that support that was being done there, so I remember how we behave, and to see those youth, right, receptive, it's like, yeah, this is powerful work, eh? So, salute say to you and the bros doing the work out there. So, and just thinking, I know we've kind of been talking about, you've mentioned, how, just the way you express yourself is your philosophy, right? You did mention, was it a life worth living? It's a life worth...
An unexamined life is not worth living.
Yeah, there we go. It's like to me, it's just like those little tidbits. It's like, yeah, that's the bro James. It's like that's just how he's gonna come at you. With those one-liners, with those little pin needles of wisdom, right? That he picks up. So maybe breaking that type of stuff down right there. Like how like the philosophy of James. Like what brings you into yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like it's those things like so profound, but you're really walking with it, So maybe just how does that happen? Is it out of love, out of understanding, out of dreaming, right? It just want to know how that, and everyone has their own niche in life, right? Philosophy, some of mathematicians, scientists, and all that stuff. Just really want to hear a little bit more of that philosophy of James, because it's profound.
Appreciate you. I feel like, it all began with the desire to become better, right? And when I mean become better, I don't mean to become better than anyone other than who I was yesterday. I think it's important for us to always strive to polish ourselves in a good way, right? In an intentional way. And I think part of my philosophy is how can I become a better human being than I was yesterday? And I understand that I'm not flawless. I have flaws. I also recognize I have strengths, but how can I lean on my strengths that are going to help me polish my flaws, right? And in focusing on, rather than not what I've experienced, but what do I want to manifest, right? What do I want my future to look like? You know, and as I had mentioned, you know, life is going to give you circumstances that are outside of your control, but it's not about what life gives you. It's about what do you do with what life gives you. And I feel like for me, you know, as I examine my life, I chose to focus on how can I, you know, improve my future, not only for myself, but for my community and for my boys and for my family. I understand that I'm not living for myself, that I'm living for something that's greater than me. So when I think of my community and I think of my family, I think that's the greatness in me. So I strive every day to really pay homage to them, but not only them, but our ancestors and the folks that came before us, right? Because what we have today was formed through a revolutionary concept of dreaming and hoping. And I say that because like a tree, when you rip a tree out of the ground, what happens to the tree? The tree withers, the tree loses its substance, it dies. And as indigenous people, like that tree, when they removed us from our roots and removed us from our culture in an attempt to remove us from what we are, you know, it's like realizing we're going to be indigenous forever and we're going to take back what you tried to take from us. You know, and I see it as a revolutionary concept because the moment you try to take back what's taken from you, the moment we're seen as being deviant, we're deviating away from the social norms. But that's not what we're doing. What we're doing is we're recapturing what was taken from us. And part of doing that is reconnecting with something that means something to you. And deep down in our heart, we all know what that looks like. And I think that is part of James's philosophy, right? Is deep down in all of our hearts, we know what we need to connect to. But so many times there's so many distractions in the world, in our communities, all this noise that we lose that sense of direction on what we were intended to do in this cycle of life, right? And rather than competing with each other, rather than focusing on each other, let's look inward. Let's compete with ourselves. Let's become better human beings than who we were yesterday. Let's block out all the noise, because in this sense, the noise is irrelevant. The noise is not going to accomplish what it is that you want to accomplish. The noise is not going to believe in you the way you believe in yourself. So block it out because it's obsolete. It's not going to do you any good, right? Focus on what's going to do you good. And the rest is irrelevant. And I think that's part of my philosophy, right? I get that tunnel vision. Stay focused, you know, embrace everyone. Not everyone's going to love you. Not everyone's going to cheer you on. But at the end of the day, you got to thank everyone, even for those that didn't root for you, even those who loved you. You got to love them all, right? And I feel like part of loving them all is understanding that sometimes they need to see you dream before they can dream. Sometimes they need to see you hope before they can hope, right? And rather looking at it in a negative connotation, let's look at it in a positive limelight. Let's be an example for each other. Let's hold each other accountable.
Revolutionary resistance to have hope, love, compassion. Right, man, it's deep, you know? It's la revolución. That's what it is, because that's what we got grit from, you know, man?
Somebody give this man a TED Talk already. Yeah. I love it. That's tight. Well, thank you, James, for sharing. I mean, as always, I mean, as soon as you launch into whatever you're going to say, it's like an audiobook, like, just like, okay, just take it in, right? It's all these little nuggets of gold, right? And so I think you've already probably covered this, but perspective from within, like, I mean, you had mentioned this when I asked you, like, what is it that you want to talk about, right? You said perspective from within. Maybe that there's something very particular that you want to talk about when it comes to that statement. And so what does that mean, perspective from within? Perspective from within,
Look inward, right? As I mentioned, all the noise, there's so many things telling us what we need to do, what we need to become, that we don't look inward. We don't take that moment to just be in silence and to have that eternal monologue, to have that eternal conversation with the self, right? I don't mean talking to ourselves. I mean being deep in conscious, being deep in thought, and seizing something that it is that you want. And I think a lot of that ability came from being confined to a small space where I wasn't in control of my ability to move. I wasn't in control of my ability to shower when I wanted to shower, but I was in control of my mind, right? Even though I wasn't in control of my physical body, I chose to control this. And part of doing that, it really helped me to develop an inner level of consciousness that really helped me focus, right? And when I say focus on what it is that you want to accomplish. Focus on what it is that you want to attain, right? Because at the end of the day, that's all that really matters, right? Because part of you helping yourself, you're going to be able to help others. I know for some, it may seem like, oh, you're being selfish. Well, if you ask me personally, that's the most selfless act that you can do, is help yourself to help others, right? That's not selfish. To me, is you got to focus in on being able to build yourself so that you can help build others, right? So I would say that inner philosophy is just focus on the heart. You know, I feel like it will never lead you astray, you know, and not only on the heart, but connecting the cara y corazón, you know, and also connecting our actions, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what we're going to be remembered for, not our words. Our words will often fall on deaf ears, but will people will remember how we treated them. People will remember the things we told them. And I want to say this now, if I've ever offended anyone, if I've ever hurt anyone, if I ever said anything that hurt you, I apologize. Because I understand I'm human, and I understand I made mistakes. And I understand that I failed and I faltered, you know, and I come with the humble heart, you know, asking for, you know, forgiveness in many different instances. And I feel like that encompasses it all, right? Because, you know, coming up in life, we might have said something, we might have done something that hurt someone, and that was never my intention. You know, so if you're listening to this now, you know, wherever you are in the universe, you know, ask for your forgiveness, and, you know, I send my love and my gratitude, and I appreciate everyone in my life that has ever sat down and even had a conversation. Even the conversations we had, you know, downstairs, Bernie, you know, for me, they mean nothing more to me, because this is how we teach each other. This is how we uplift each other. This is how we challenge each other in a good way to dream.
Beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
Beautiful. Just taking all that.
You know,
I'm in church right now. Woo! God damn.
You know, from the walls of confinement, right, came this beautiful philosophy, perspective from within, you know, and again, you know, it's like making the best thing out of the circumstances that we're in, the situation that we're in, even if we're in control or not, but understanding that we're in control of what happens right here, you know, trying to line this up, you know. So yeah, no, it's, you know, it kind of just segues to this next point of view that we want to hear from you, right? Is when it comes to, you know, healthy role models, right? And understand that, you know, you got your family, the working with the youth, the community, right? Even your relationship with the other students and the professors, right? You know, in your own words, you know, what does a healthy role model, you know, look like? You know, what does that healthy masculinity look like? You know,
when I think of healthy masculinity, it's being okay with your emotions, being okay with the sentiments that you feel, the pain that you feel, being okay with expressing ourselves in a way that's not going to harm others. And I feel like within the society, we're taught not to be expressive. We're taught not to cry. We're taught not to express our humanity. So in a sense, I feel like that creates this blockage that's necessary for us to really open up and share our inner sentiments, our inner feelings. And it's like a cup. You know, you pour so much water and eventually it overflows. You know, we haven't been taught that emotional intelligence that's needed in order for us to be expressive and in order for us to understand that we can open up. And it's not about whether people are going to shun us. It's not about whether people are going to ridicule us. It's about pouring out what's inside, because that's what's creating that frustration. That's what's creating the rage, is that ability not to express ourselves, right? So when I think about healthy masculinity, it's about being in your emotions, right? Being in your sentiments and being able to express that in a healthy way. For example, if someone harms you, you know, sitting them down and saying, you know what, something you said, it really bothered me, and this is why it bothered me, I feel like if we sit down and talk about some of those inner sentiments that stop us from opening up, and it's like a flower, right? When its growth is stunted, it's not gonna blossom the way it needs to blossom. And I think we as men, we need that ability to express ourselves with no inclination that we're gonna be slandered, that we're gonna be less of a man, that we're not gonna be able to, practice that emotional intelligence. Because when I think about emotional intelligence, part of that is if you need to cry, cry. Mm-hmm. If you were never intended to cry, God would have never given you tears. Just because society has says we can't doesn't mean we can't. And if it means, for me to cry and others are going to shun me, well then by all means shun me, but I need to get this out and being okay with that. Right? So when I think about healthy masculinity, it's also knowing your strength, knowing what you're capable of, knowing it's okay that if we need to sit down and have a difficult conversation, that we can do that. And it be in a safe space, right? When I say safe space, with no ridicule, no judgment, no putting me down, saying I'm anything less than a man because I want to open up about my feelings and I want to open up about my emotions. So I feel like a lot of that dialogue is needed when I'm talking about healthy masculinity, because we've been taught to mask our feelings, mask our emotions, right? So having that ability to express ourselves, in a conversation, I think is very paramount in us practicing that healthy masculinity with other men. Because so many times, conversations are exchanged through fists. There's a disagreement, rather than us talk about it. Okay, let's go, handle this like men is a term that's often used. But let's not handle this like women talk, women gossip. Let's not do it that way. But it's like, hey, hold on. We got to understand that we as men, we have that intersectionality. We got that fire in that water, right? And we're okay with that. We're okay with knowing that it makes me no less of a man, all because I want to tell you my inner thoughts or my inner feelings. It doesn't take away from me being who I am just because I want to express myself. I hope I didn't go on a tangent. I hope that answered the question.
Off top, it's and there ain't no tangents here. This is it's like
we're just free flowing. It's all good.
That's the whole thing too. It's like you mentioned something, like the ridicule, like society sometimes sees crying as a weakness, but that's true. It's like sometimes our experiences hardens us, to have to shut that down, compartmentalize that part of our humanity, So I appreciate those words, that is a component that we need, as healthy men, to be healthier men. Just to be able to talk to each other, to live life in a better way, like always trying to strive to create a better version of ourselves on the daily basis, just boom, boom, boom. So I appreciate that,
And even as a woman growing up in a Mexican household, there is that culture, right, of that machismo of you're going to hold in your feelings, you're not going to cry, you're going to just keep working and make it happen, right? And so having a father and a brother that I grew up with that kind of practiced that of like holding in feelings and we're going to settle things through yelling and through fighting and through hurting each other. It's one of those, it also harms the women, right? Because a lot of time it's just unhealthy all the way around, right? And so I'm glad that we're talking about that and that we're having these conversations that like you can just be a human being, like be yourself. Like you don't have to ascribe to like, because I'm a man, I have to do all these things that a man does, right? Like you get to, like you as people get to choose, as human beings, we get to choose, okay, this is who I am, this is my character, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to go for. And so that's beautiful that you're offering that space of, I don't have to, I can be who I want. I can cry if I want to. I can share my feelings. I can talk, because at the end of the day, you're still James Martinez, right? Like that's not taken away. And so, yes, thank you so much for being here with us and, just bringing your word and your gospel, the way I say it. It's not in a religious sense, but it's just in a beautiful spiritual, like James way. Yeah, it's just really powerful. Like your words are just really powerful. And I feel like you always say something that I need to hear, that I'm going through something that I'm like, man, I just needed to hear that. And it's like, cool, like I can keep going. Cool. Sure. Like that's good. But with that, what is your call to action? What should the folks listening do? The folks that are listening right now, what should they do right now?
Love yourself. I would say love yourself, because in this society, we're not taught to love ourselves. We're taught that we're inadequate. So in this moment, I want to assure you that you're not inadequate, that you're sacred the way you are. You're beautiful the way you are. Love yourself, because you're going to come across many people that are not going to love you. And part of building that love for yourself is going to help you in the face when someone doesn't love you, to love yourself even more and love them in the process.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you so much for being here with us. I want to prod a little bit more. What does it mean to love yourself?
Well, when I think about to love yourself, is to be gentle with yourself, right? Have that eternal monologue, but that eternal monologue of positivity, not negativity. So many times we're in our minds, I'm ugly, I'm not beautiful, I'm not smart, I'm not intelligent, I'm not capable. Let's tell ourselves those positive reinforcements, right? I'm beautiful, I'm sacred, I'm capable, I'm smart, I'm intelligent, I'm worthy. Those positive reaffirmations are very important, right? So I feel like if there's one thing I want to share, it's to love yourself and to give yourself those positive reinforcements, because not everyone's going to give them to you. Palabra.
Yeah. Well, with that, anything else to add, Bernie? Anything coming up?
That's James right here. Just an honor to
Appreciate
be in your presence, to be part of your circle, to be a bro to you, an amigo, and a fellow man, a fellow healthy man, I
appreciate you.
Well, thank you so much, James, for being here with us. It's always a pleasure to connect with you, talk to you, and just get that you're our modern day Plato, right? And Aristotle. So it's like, all right, let me talk to James, right? And so it's good to connect with you. And, for the folks out there, thanks for watching. Shout out to the Andes as always. Y'all. Shout out to everybody that watches. Happy 2022. And yeah, take care. Peace. Bye.
Culture consciousness and movement building MILPA. Cultivated change makers. Yeah, we're that smart. Here we go.